Hey there folks, how you doing today? Hope all is going well for you. Welcome back to the channel, and please bear with any background racket you might hear throughout this production. We are on location here where life happens, and sometimes there are noises going on out there that get in the way. Before we go any further, I'd like to show you that this is in fact a safe and empty weapon. We've got an empty chamber, red follower to our magazine there. There is no ammunition for this weapon in our workspace, and it's going to remain that way for this portion of the content. Now, the subject of today's video is not this unbraced pistol, rather it is just the platform we will use to illustrate the Gowutar A20 red dot, or in this case green dot, optic. Now, I have seen several other YouTube content creators in the past month or so do reviews and even torture tests on the Gowutar A20. Of the ones that I have seen, they were all contacted by Gowutar and asked to do the review. That is not the case in this video, folks. So anytime I see something that I think might be a little too good to be true, I like to verify things for myself. So with that in mind, I went on Amazon.com and I purchased this optic with my own money for the express purpose of reviewing to see if it really did live up to all the hype. Now, understand a couple of things. As a budget tier red dot optic, this one MSRP is somewhere around $130. I purchased it with discount codes on Amazon, got it out the door for about $100, which is considerably less than you would pay for a Vortex Viper or a Holosun 507 or many of the other red dot optics that are on the market. So I'm not going to bore you with a full-length description of all of the features that this optic has. Rather, I will highlight some of the important stuff. I will put up baseball cards at the end of this video depicting all of the features. Should you want to see them, just fast forward until you get to that point on the video. So as I said, I ordered the optic on Amazon.com. I had it at the house within 2 days. As soon as it arrived, I opened the box and began what I like to call the torture test of this optic. Alright, here we got the Gowutar, came in, still sealed up in the box. Alright, there it is, right there. Factory sealed. This is the green one, made in the PRC. Well, doesn't look like the seal stuck. I don't know if that means anything. And here, we'll take that Gowutar out of there. And first rattle out of the box, let's make sure little covers on it good before we do anything else with it to see how it does in the water. I let it set in that water for about 15 or 20 minutes. I did not set a timer, but it was in there for a good while. Then I used my wife's hairdryer to dry it out before I mounted it on top of this weapon. Now, the first thing I noticed when I mounted the optic on top of the pick rail with the supplied adapter was it set too low. You couldn't co-witness, you could barely see through it. It was workable, but it was very uncomfortable when you're pressing your head into the buffer tube extension in order to try to get a sight picture. So I went back on Amazon. For about $11, I purchased a quick release 5-slot rail mount with which to mount the optic to the top of the weapon. I already had a 3-slot rail, but it was too high, and I really don't like putting an optic like this on top of a 3-slot rail because you have a negative space underneath the fore and aft portions that is very easy to get stuff hung up on. So I opted to go ahead and mount it on top of a 5-slot rail section. As soon as I had the optic mounted, I bore sighted it and got it set for about 25 yards. Then I took it out to the range. Now, the normal testing range that I use for stuff like this is flooded at the moment. If you look straight ahead out there, you can see our backstop, and this is the road, which right there is completely underwater, and the entire range is flooded with about a foot and a half of water, so it's going to keep us from getting out there today. So I had to take it out to the public range, and as such I had to behave myself while I was out there. The optic performed very well at 25 and 50 yards. So I brought it back home and began the second portion of the torture test. Now, I saw another reviewer take the Optic by itself and drop it from a height of 14 feet onto a wooden deck. While impressive that it held up to that, that's not a realistic real-world test, so I went ahead and sacrificed my own weapon to provide as realistic of a test as I could of the Gowutar A20 and its durability during a drop test. So let's say you had one of these mounted on your pistol. And for the sake of argument, let's say you dropped it right on the Optic in the dirt. And for the sake of argument, we did it again. And again. And again. Yes, folks, that's right. I took my own weapon with the Gowutar A20 mounted on top of it and threw it several times, hosed it down, got it wet, messed it up, plugged up the bore, all to test the durability of the Gowutar A20. Aw man, our electric battery powered Optic is all dirty now from being dropped in the ground. I guess we should clean it up. So after I got it hosed off, dried out, and re-oiled, I took it back out to the range. The Gowutar A20 is available in red and green. I preferred to go with the green one as my eyes have an easier time picking up a green dot than they do a red dot. Now, I have had it explained to me, and it makes sense, that the reason a green dot is easier to pick up than a red dot for some people is because of our color spectrum scale. Green is right here in the middle, whereas red is over here at the edge. Therefore, green in its entirety of spectrum is more visible to more people. Makes sense to me. You might think differently of it. Regardless, this one's green. In order to get the green one, you're going to spend about $10 more than the red one. I think that's $10 well spent. Another very nice feature to this Optic platform is it has a battery saving feature where after 4 minutes of inactivity, the Optic will shut itself down. However, it will turn itself back on as soon as it senses movement. They call this a shake awake feature. So we tested that, and this is what we saw. Now, if you look close, I'll demonstrate how quickly the Optic turns itself back on. It kind of reminds me of your grandmother's touch lamp that she had in her living room where all you had to do was touch the base and it would come on. Very sensitive, very positive. I've had no issues with battery life over the course of the past couple of weeks. How long the battery will last, it's hard to say. Concerning that battery and the ease of accessibility, you will notice here, and I will zoom in on that for you, that the Gowutar has a top battery access plate. I find that to be a superior design to the Vortex Viper's Optic removal requirement, and on par with the drawer method used by many other Optics. I will add, however, that the Torx recess in the battery cover is very shallow, and I think with improper handling or too much torque, you could easily strip that out, and then it would be very difficult to change the battery. So keep that in mind. So overall, what do we think about the Gowutar A20? Well, as I mentioned before, I think I mentioned it before, it's made in the People's Republic of China. If that bothers you, there's a lot of other things that are going to bother you. Holosun 507s, Vortex Viper, both of which I own and paid a considerable amount more for than the Gowutar A20, are also made in the PRC. While I would prefer to have something American made on the weapon, that's almost unrealistic for someone who is looking for an affordable green dot or red dot option. I think this is probably one of the better ones on the market. And while it is too soon to speak to the longevity of the product, I believe it is a good value, and I would encourage you to consider it as an option if you are looking for a device such as this. One other notable feature is the Optic has an RMR footprint and will mount directly to the top of any pistol with an RMR MOS relief or with the proper adapter plate. Another thing I'll point out is that the green dot, while not the crispest and cleanest that I've seen, certainly wasn't bad. And I would say that in the price range of optics under $300, it was kind of right in the middle. It wasn't bad, it wasn't exceptionally good. I have astigmatism and I was able to pick it up okay, and I think probably most folks would be as well. So final thoughts on the Gowutar A20. I think it's a solid value. I think if you are looking for a green dot or red dot optic to mount directly to the top of a conventional pistol or to a PDW style pistol such as this one, I think it is a good solid option, and I would not be afraid to pull the trigger on that purchase. I'd really like to hear from y'all your thoughts on this topic. Until next time, take care. God bless.